Well, there was solid economic news today as the Commerce Department estimated a robust 4.1 GDP annual growth rate in the second quarter of the year. That's the biggest single quarter gain in 4 years. America needs good economic growth, obviously, to help solve the plight of young people who are suffering under much greater debt burdens than their parents were at their age. One of the reasons so many of them call themselves socialists. Every year the student loan bubble grows. The average graduate now leaves school with over $30,000 in loans to pay off. What do they get in exchange? Not much. Lenore Hawkins is chief macro strategist for Techmatica Research. We recently talked to her about the growing debt crisis. Here's the conversation. Lenore, thank you for coming on. What are the effects of this on the country?
Well, one of the things this is doing is within the housing market, it's delaying the purchase of the first home an average of 7 years. And that affects not just the person buying the home, but that affects all of the economy because that person isn't getting those additional 7 years of wealth accumulation as their house appreciates in value. It affects the people selling their homes because you're removing a group of buyers from the equation because they just have so much debt they can't afford to be buying a home.
$1.5 trillion is almost too big a number to put into any kind of context. I mean, there are very few countries in the world with a GDP bigger than that. So what would happen if borrowers started to default on those loans?
When we take it in context of the size of our economy, it's a truly astounding number. The economy per year generates about 18 trillion, and that 1.5 trillion is bigger than everything we owe on cars. All the car loans are about 1.1 trillion. Credit card debt is less than $1 trillion. So if these guys start to default, who's going to be left holding the bag? Well, one of the really big challenges here is you can't actually get through bankruptcy. You can't remove this debt where you can with everything else. So what are you going to do? You're not going to pay your credit card bill. You're not going to pay your mortgage. You're not going to pay your home loan because you don't have a choice, even when you go to bankruptcy, to not pay your student debt.
Well, I don't understand exactly how that works, and I'm not advocating people going bankrupt. I mean, there are moral issues around that. But I do wonder why student loan debt is exempted from the normal bankruptcy protections. How did that happen? How did they get a pass on that?
Well, you could actually extinguish it in bankruptcy up until 1995 when Congress tightened it up, making it all but impossible. However, they did exclude, and you have to love this, their own offspring. So if you are the child of a member of Congress, you can't extinguish your student loans by going to bankruptcy court. You've got to love that.
For real?
Yes.
Well, that's unbelievable. So was this a lobbying operation where student loan lenders decided, well, why would we want to face the risk of getting not getting our money back?
Well, think about who the student loan lender is. It's the federal government. The federal government has all but run most of all other lending out of the market. You just can't compete with the federal government. And you see what the result of that is. This is very like what we saw with subprime housing, right? With the subprime housing crisis, what you saw was the government deciding that more and more people ought to own homes. So they made it easier and easier to borrow money. They kept lowering the bar so that more people would borrow money. What did that do? Well, that made the housing market shoot for the moon because more people could buy homes. Well, they've done the same thing here with education. Want more and more people to get education, which is all really good. But the way they went about doing it is to make loans more accessible. Just like we did with homes, we're making loans for education more accessible. And what has happened? You've seen the price of that education has absolutely skyrocketed. For example, if you looked at from 1985 to today, where the cost of education has gone up 4 times that of just inflation in general. And it's not like wages have been keeping up with that. In 1971, the cost of 1 year of education at college cost about little less than half of what the average guy can make in a year. Today, it's just shy of 2 years' worth.
That's unbelievable. Meanwhile, the quality of college education has plummeted. The meaning of a degree has basically evaporated. This is a scam, and I appreciate your calling it to the attention of our viewers. Thanks a lot, Lenore. Lenore Hawkins.
Thank you, Tucker.